Can we sit outside all day if we've got a high sunscreen factor on?
No.
Your skin is your lifelong companion and it deserves care and protection. Today we're addressing common misconceptions about sun protection, particularly focusing on the myth that darker skin tones are immune to sunburn. This misconception has contributed to what's known as the sunscreen gap, often leaving individuals with darker skin vulnerable to sun damage. So we're here to shed light on the truth and provide guidance on effective sun protection for every skin tone. I'm Jo Hoare and you're watching The Skin Clinic with Boots. I'm here today with two brilliant Boots experts, Whitney and Claire. Whitney, do you want to tell me a bit about what you do for Boots?
Yeah, so I work in Boots as a store-based pharmacist, so I help patients over the counter in terms of advice and queries. I also offer travel vaccinations as well, and we also check prescriptions too.
And Claire, what about you?
So I'm a senior research scientist and a UV expert. I do a lot of longer term research into the impact of sunlight on the skin.
So we're here today to talk all about sun protection, sunscreen. We've got you guys here today to tell us exactly what we should be doing and probably crucially what we shouldn't be doing as well. Number one, darker skin tones can't burn. Absolutely not true. I know there's been a lot about, there's a bit of a sunscreen gap, or historically there has been, that people with darker skin tones think, I don't need to bother with sunscreen, or I can wear less sunscreen. Is that something that you've seen or you've come across?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of myths out there about the fact that the darker your skin tone, you don't burn, therefore you don't need sunscreen. But actually what we need to remember is that sun damage is cumulative and it builds up over your lifetime. Yes. And just because you might not be able to see it on the surface immediately doesn't mean that the damage hasn't happened underneath.
With darker skin tone, it may not appear as dark straight away, but it could definitely build up over time. You will experience, if you do have skin damage, darkening skin and sometimes skin sensitivity as well, and also skin that's quite itchy and sore and painful to touch too.
So absolutely everyone should be wearing sunscreen every day, regardless of their skin colour?
Absolutely.
The sun protection in my makeup is enough for every day. So if we've got a foundation that's got an SPF rating in it, for example, is that enough?
An SPF 15 is an SPF 15 in terms of protection levels, regardless of the type of product it's in. We tend to apply a much thinner layer of cosmetics so that you're not actually getting the level of protection. Cosmetic with sun protection are great as part of layering over a normal sunscreen product.
So even if it's something with a really high factor, it's the fact that we're not layering on foundation in the same way that we would be layering sunscreen to be adequately protected.
Exactly, and it wears off. It doesn't have the same wear properties as perhaps a sunscreen that's going to last for 2 to 8 hours.
But SPF every day. I don't need to wear sunscreen every day in the UK. I think you're going to say we do, aren't you?
UV rays, they exist throughout the year. So whether it's raining, whether it's cold outside, whether it's super sunny outside, and that can also cause skin damage as well.
And even in the deepest depths of winter, of using sunscreen daily is really important.
Can we sit outside all day if we've got a high sunscreen factor on?
No. Sunscreen is just one form of sun protection. We should be thinking about shade, spending time indoors, clothing, hats, etc. But our skin can only take so much sun. So even if we're really careful and we keep reapplying, sitting out all day is still likely to lead to sunburn.
What benefits do we get from applying after sun?
There are two main benefits. One is the formulations tend to be incredibly cooling for some initial comfort. And then the second thing is intense moisturisation, because one of the things that the sun does is it dehydrates our skin. Obviously we see it leading to peeling, etc. So it's really important to rehydrate the skin.
Does sunscreen have an expiry date?
Sunscreens usually have a period after opening of about 18 months. My advice would be, if you've bought some sunscreen one summer and you haven't opened it, the next summer check that it hasn't separated, it doesn't smell it. If it looks good and it smells good, then it's probably good to go for a second summer. But after that, bin it.
If you're wearing a water-resistant sun protection, do you still need to reapply it after you've been swimming?
Yes. So water-resistant sunscreen only retains up to about 50% of its protection once it's been in the water. So you will always need to reapply as soon as you come out to maintain that protection.
What do the numbers? We've talked a lot about factors already today, but what do those numbers actually mean?
So the sun protection factor is a multiplier of your natural burn time. So say, for example, you would burn in 10 minutes, an SPF 10 would protect you for 100 minutes, but only if you are reapplying frequently and keeping that level of protection. The higher the sun protection factor, the more it's going to protect you against that harmful UV. I would always say that everybody, regardless of skin tone, should be using a minimum of about SPF 30. And if you've got sensitive skin, or for children, an SPF 50.
And I think one other myth people think is that every time they reapply, the clock goes back to zero. If you have 10 minutes and that will multiply to give you 50 minutes, or you can do that again, but that's not true, is it?
No, it isn't true. Our skin can only take so much UV. Reapplication does not extend your time in the sun. All it does is maintain the film and the protection level upon your skin.
People can be resistant to wearing sunscreen because they think they're not going to tan at all through it. Will you still tan if you have sunscreen on?
Any sign of tanning means that your skin's been damaged. It's a damage response, which, however much wish it wasn't true, is true. Even with a factor 50 plus, you are still going to get some colour on your skin. There is no such thing as a total sunblock. It's no excuse to not wear sunscreen just because you want to get a tan.
Something I think lots of people who have very sensitive skin or who have reactive skin in some ways, I have rosacea, and I know that sometimes sunscreen can be a trigger for that. What can people who are worried about their skin being sensitised by sunscreen do?
So rosacea is triggered by UV, so wearing sunscreen is actually helpful. It's hard to unpick sometimes whether the reactions are due to the sunscreen or actually due to the UV, and mostly it's due to the UV light rather than the actual product. So I'd recommend using a product suitable for sensitive skin, minimising any impact that you might have a reaction, but actually the biggest stressor for the skin is the UV. Yes.
Unpicking the language around sunscreen a little bit, what is the difference between a chemical and a physical sunscreen?
The two types of sunscreen, they work in different ways, so I tend to call them absorbers and reflectors. So the ones that most people call chemical are absorbers, and they act like a tiny sponge, and they absorb the UV light and then chop it up into harmless wavelengths, and it's just given off as warmth. The reflectors act like a mirror on the surface of the skin, and they gently reflect the light away. If you're using something that's reflecting, it can leave the skin looking white, and it tends
like
to...
the cricketers with their
exactly,
sort of
the little
battle.
the white stripes. That's non-inclusive, it's not suitable for all skin tones, and it can just look unpleasant to have that sort of ghostly white hue on the surface of your
especially if you want to wear makeup over the top.
The absorbing chemical type filters tend to lend themselves to very elegant, very inclusive formulations, so they can be suitable for all of our consumers, whereas the mineral ones can be perceived as being perhaps more natural, less irritant, but tend to feel and look very unpleasant. So it is really down to personal preference. I mean, the best thing is the product that you're going to use and reapply.
The best sunscreen is the one that you wear. Sometimes things happen, we might get caught unawares. It might be that we didn't check our sun cream and it was longer ago than 18 months and we've burnt for whatever reason. What can we do when we've burnt and we're feeling really uncomfortable?
I think the first thing that one can do is keeping hydrated, so making sure that you are regularly taking in water. Second thing that you can do is also trying to keep the body cool, so regularly taking cool baths. If one does experience peeling as a result of sun damage, then one can also use cooling gels, for example, aloe vera.
If we are sunburnt and we want some extra advice, we can come in and ask a pharmacist as well.
Yep, you can pop into the pharmacy. We'll be able to provide cooling gels, like I mentioned before, in terms of aloe vera, and there are different types of cooling gels that one can use to help with sun damage and peeling.
Brilliant. So try your very, very hardest to avoid it, but if you do, you're here to help. Yes. Brilliant, thank you.
If you need further advice, pop into your local Boots pharmacy and your pharmacist will be happy to help.